Hey everybody, I'm going to make a quick video here and show you guys what I use for software for pretty much everything. And basically, at the point that I'm at, I don't have to pay for software at all. I've still got a couple of things that I'll pay for. Thank you for biting me, bud. But I don't have to. Normally when I do, like with Microsoft Office for instance, it's because somebody else made something in Office and I want to open it up without too much of a hassle with formatting and stuff. But you can get away with just this software, actually, and totally do 99.9% of the things that you need to do, unless you're in some kind of specialized field like engineering or whatever. So when I reformat somebody's computer for Windows, this is the stuff that I'll put onto it, sort of like by default, unless they need something special, unless they request something else. I'm going over this for Windows 10. I've got a list of things for Mac as well, and a list of things for Linux. But Windows 10, you know, is the common operating system, so I figured this would be the most useful for people to see. So firstly, Google Chrome. Should say. Yeah, firstly, Google Chrome. And if you need to, you can come up here and you can pause the video and take a look to see the addresses. I'm not going to put them all down below, but I've got the download addresses for everything. You guys know Chrome. Yes, Google is evil. Yes, Chrome uses a lot of memory, relatively a lot of memory, but it just works for the most part. And some of the other software that I use relies upon Chrome to work 100%, so I go with Chrome. I think she's jealous right now that I'm talking to the camera and not her. So if you like Firefox, cool, go with that, but I prefer Chrome. And I've also already given them all of my information, you know, browsing history, location history, they're on my Android phone and so forth. So I may as well, since I sold them my soul, I might as well get my money's worth. The next thing I'll use is Google Drive, and I'll just use it right from within Chrome. And I mention that because it's going to lead into the next thing, but Drive works great. You get 15 gigabytes of free space, plus you can expand that at certain times. They have some promotions now and then. And of course you can pay to get more, but 15 gigabytes free at the outset. The next thing I'm going to show you is Google Backup and Sync, which is super nice. Basically what it does is it takes your Google Drive and it creates a local backup for you on your local computer. And then it can take files from other folders on your computer and also back it up to Drive. And so what's nice about that is once you've got it backed up, you can actually modify it from right within Windows. So like here is regular File Explorer, and you'll notice over here there's Google Drive. This thing runs every time I start the computer. It's right here. Backup and Sync, updated 44 minutes ago. And what it will do is, if I add a file here, remove a file, modify a file, whatever, it will update Google Drive online and on all of the other devices, and then vice versa. So it's synchronized, basically. And so like, if I come in here and make a change to something, you know, like change this schematic or something like that, I can go into Google Drive online if I'm at someone else's house on someone else's computer, and I can pull up that same exact thing. So it's a free one, it works really well, and again it integrates with Windows, which is just nice. The next thing I'll use is a WhatsApp client, and I actually don't use this one, but this is the official one, whatsapp.com/download. Reason being, and basically how this works is, you've got WhatsApp on your phone, you install the client, and you can actually use WhatsApp Web as well, just from within Chrome, but you get the client, it's a standalone thing, separate from Chrome. You open up WhatsApp on here and click the three buttons, like where the settings are, and click WhatsApp Web, and click plus, and it gives you a QR code reader. This will give you a QR code, you scan it, and then you're logged into that computer. And instead of using this, what I'll actually use is Rambox, because Rambox has all of these different services. For messaging, for email, for a bunch of other stuff. And I'm not going to show you mine because I have messages on there, but you can use as many of these services or as few of these services as you want. So like I've got WhatsApp on there for my phone, Facebook Messenger, Facebook itself. I've also got Gmail on there twice, one for my personal, one for my work Gmail, and you can put them both on there. You can also change these little titles here, these little headings. I've got Skype, I've got Calendar, and it's all in one thing. So it's basically, it's pretty much like having Chrome with a bunch of tabs automatically opened and logged into, but it's separate from Chrome. And what's nice is when you open it back up, everything's automatically logged into it. And so you can have it start automatically with Windows, though I don't recommend ever doing that with any software really. But it saves your information, it's easy to use, it's easy to set up, and it's free. And I think this one's also open source as well. But I'm not sure, but I love this software. There's another one called Franz, but Franz has a timer and some apps and stuff because it's monetized, whereas this one is not monetized and just works. And you can see there's all of these things plus more. Discord, regular old IRC, and even Google Hangouts, which is kind of dead now, Gmail, Outlook, all sorts of stuff. So this is one of my new favorite programs. AnyDesk. This is a remote desktop application, which I've shown y'all before. I'll open up my server really quickly here. There we go. I'm connected to my server. My server is right over here. It's on my local network. But now I can do things like, modify files, do whatever I need to do, and then just close it out. And it just works like a desktop. I can also connect to that from anywhere in the world. So I'm in Istanbul now. I took a trip for my work to Lisbon within the last year, and I was able to connect from Lisbon to my servers and my computers here, which we're still on, and could do stuff remotely that way. Could manage my network, could do anything that you would do on a computer. There's a little bit of lag and latency, but you get used to that. This is just basically a website, and there's a bunch like this, but this one is mine. So this is sodapdf.com/pdf-merge/. So what's nice with this, you just select what files you want. You can add more files. And I use this to put PDFs together for work quite often. Yes, I have Adobe Acrobat, but this works well. The only thing I don't know is when you upload the files to sites like this, they now have that file. So if they choose to do something with it that is unsavory, let's say, that's their right. You're giving them this information, right? It's kind of like when you post a photo to Facebook. You like to hope that you have privacy, but you don't. And you just willingly gave them your info. So be careful using sites like this. But I use it for schoolwork because it's not usually not a big deal, not a big issue. And I'm quite sure it's never going to come back to bite me. Knock on wood, fingers crossed. You can use Acrobat, it's the same thing. There are other free tools. For Linux, I use one called PDF Mix Tool that works well, but this website works pretty well too. For a media player, I use VLC. It's got basically every major codec built into it. It's available for Windows, Mac, Linux, iOS, Android. It just works really well. It's just a media player. It's got a bunch of extra stuff too that frankly I don't even know about. I do like that it's got local network discovery in there. So you can click local network, and if you have like a file storage, like a NAS box, which I have, network attached storage, you can connect to that directly, which is nice. I've got all of my videos and music onto a network attached storage box, and I can just connect to it, search through it, pick a video, play it right from VLC without having to go to Chrome or something else like that. So yeah, VLC is awesome. Basically, this has replaced all of my media players from the past. Most all of my media players. I'll talk about one or two later. And actually, here's one. This is Popcorn Time. Now, I'm not going to get into the legality of this. Basically, this was popcorntime.sh. Now it's .app. As far as I know, actually streaming the videos and stuff is illegal. If you choose to do that, that's on you. Of course, I never would do that. Never would suggest it or recommend it, but it's one of those programs that just happened to be on my computer for some reason. And it's got a bunch of new movies, new to DVD, and a bunch of new TV shows, and it's updated regularly, the list of shows and stuff. The application has also been updated recently because of the issue that we're going through, the pandemic and such. And so that is being worked on, semi-regularly as well. It uses BitTorrent, but where BitTorrent will bring in the bits and pieces of a file randomly. This will bring it in such a way that what you end up with is a stream that you can watch. And so it's still BitTorrent, but it ends up being streaming. So it's more or less organized BitTorrenting, I guess is the way to look at it. The only thing is, once you've began downloading the files, the movies, the TV shows, it will also start sharing those with other users. And it will do that until you close the program down, close it down and reopen it. And it will also save them temporarily. So you want to close it down after every movie or two, just to make sure you're not sharing much and stuff. In places like the US, if you use this, if you're using BitTorrent at all, you'll probably get a copyright notice thing from your ISP, from Time Warner or Spectrum or Comcast or whoever your service provider is. I'm in Istanbul, they don't care, so that's cool. But just be careful about that. And to get around that, you would want to use a VPN, which again, I'm in Istanbul, so I generally don't, because they slow things down and I don't really need to for the most part. But VPNs, if you're in a country that cares about copyrighted material and is going after folks for that, get a VPN. Plex Media Server is one that I've got, and I've got it on my server here. And basically, this allows me, I'm not going to get deep into any of these, but this allows me to put movies and music into folders on my server, and then Plex Media Server will automatically download the movie information, the music info, the art, the descriptions, things like that, and it sorts it out in a way that basically what I have is my own personal Netflix machine, my own personal Netflix server. And then I can log into it just by going to the plex.tv/web and putting in my information and stuff. I can connect to it that way. There are also Plex Media clients, and there's like a plus package you can pay for a couple bucks a month. So like, for instance, it won't work on Android unless you pay for the client software. However, it will work on Android because all you have to do is open it up in Chrome. So it'll work from Chrome on any device. It's nice. It's your own personal Netflix. It does transcoding, it does a bunch of stuff. It can be tough to set up, and you would probably want somebody who's at least familiar with computer stuff to help you set it up. It's not for the faint of heart. This one is Transmission. This is my BitTorrent client that I use. It's nice. There's just not much to it. I actually have this set up on a computer as well. So what you'll see if you download Transmission is basically this, though I've changed the view a little bit. This one is remote because this one is actually, I have BitTorrent on my server and I'm connecting to it with this, but the regular BitTorrent client, the regular BitTorrent software looks pretty much the same. It's just a torrent client, that's all it is. And then you would get torrents from wherever you get your torrents from. Of course, only of legally obtainable things, books that are free and software that your friends have written and such. Anyways, that's one that I use constantly. It's small, it's been around for a while. It works for Linux, Mac, and Windows, although the Mac one is a little goofy. But yeah, it's nice. Paint.net is another free one. Basically, Paint.net, which you can get here, and GIMP, which GIMP is, I think, what is it? GNU Image Manipulation Program, I think is what that stands for, something like that. This one's available for Linux, Mac, or Windows, whereas Paint.net is only for Windows. Now, interestingly, with Paint.net, if you go to the Microsoft Store, you have to pay them like $4 or $5 to get it. If you get it from this website, it's free. It is the same exact thing. There's no difference whatsoever. And basically, it's a paint program that is kind of like, in my mind, it's like halfway between the old crappy Microsoft Paint and Photoshop. So it's got some advanced stuff like layers, but it's not as high-end as Photoshop. But it's nice. I use it regularly. So like what I may do is take a picture with my phone, share it, to put it onto Google Drive. Once it's on Google Drive, I can open it up through here, and then I can just right-click the photo and do Open with Paint.net or Open with GIMP. And once I've got it opened in there, I can modify it, do whatever, and save it. And then, of course, since I'm saving it on Google Drive, it'll synchronize across all of my devices after that. So I don't think I've used GIMP on here since I installed it. It opens up a little bit slowly. There's add-ons and stuff like that you can do. But again, similar deal. It's somewhere between Photoshop and Paint. It's got a lot more advanced stuff like layers and everything that Photoshop has, but it's really not quite Photoshop caliber. But still, it's free software and it's awesome. Both of them are free. And I really like Paint.net because if I'm not mistaken, it was actually developed by a group of university students. And I think each year those students add to it, which I just thought was neat that they make this program, they give it away for free, and then they, the students themselves maintain it and update it and such. The GNU image manipulation program is Linux software essentially that's been ported to Windows and Mac. And so it's open source, it's free, and it's maintained by the community of maintainers who just work on this project. So yeah, those are both nice for modifying pictures, making drawings, things like that. The next one I use regularly is VirtualBox, which is virtual machine software. If you're not familiar, virtual machines are basically a computer running inside of a computer. So like I've got Windows 10 running on this right now, normal Windows 10. I can open up Linux. This is a custom version I made. I can open up another copy of Windows inside of Windows. I'll show you this Amazon Fire one in a second if it works correctly. But basically a virtual machine is when you run a computer inside of a computer. And you just take the main computer, the host's resources, and you share them. So like this computer has 12 processing cores, 24 threads. I'll give maybe 8 cores to Windows 10. This computer has 48 gigs of memory. I'll give 16 gigs to Windows 10. Now it'll run on something with even a dual or a quad core processor, but you'll have fewer resources to share. But anyways, if you know what VirtualBox is, then you probably already know all this stuff. And if you don't, you probably never will want to. But if you need to make a virtual machine, if you're interested in virtual machines, VirtualBox is a good place to start. It's pretty easy to use. There's lots of options and stuff. You got to dig into it a little bit, but there's a lot of documentation online for it too. It's completely free and it works really well. This one's developed, I think, by Oracle. Yeah, it's an Oracle product. The next one is called Genymotion, which, let's see if it opens up. Genymotion is an Android emulator. I think I had issues last time. Maybe I'm wrong, let's see. So this is an Android emulator, and for Genymotion to work, you have to have VirtualBox installed as well. It uses VirtualBox virtual machine software, but it's specialized for Android. And so like I've got a Windows computer here, of course, and I'm trying to start up anyways. Let's see if it works here. Trying to start up an Android device on top of it. And so then if I wanted to, like if I make Android software, I can test it on here. If I just want to try out an Android device or try out the new version of Android, 9, 10, 11, whatever, I can do that. Sorry, having issues with the thing. You can see that it's slow. I think for this one it's got 4 or 6 cores and 6 or 8 gigabytes of memory. It's slow because it's virtualized, and Android's made to run on ARM processors natively, and so there are layers of emulation layers that slow things down. But at the same time, it works pretty well really for what it is. Yeah, you can see it's kind of laggy and stuff, but it's all right. So anyways, I'll use that one mostly just to play around, honestly. But it's also free, and since Android is open source, it's free, and you can get anything. You can try Android 4.1 up to 9 right now, and there are updates to this regularly too. And then you can try lots of different devices, or you can create custom devices in here, custom phone, custom tablet, with whatever size screen you want, with whatever version of Android you want. You select how many processors and how much memory it uses from your computer. So yeah, kind of cool. The next one, I use this regularly, AnyDesk Partition Master, which this is for partitioning drives, hard drives, flash drives, other stuff like that. And I'll use this, like for instance, if I have a drive that had, Windows on it on another machine, and I want to, even if I'm just reinstalling Windows, I'll usually pop it into an external enclosure, put it in here and open this up, and then I can go in and do things like delete it all. I can convert it to dynamic disk. I can rebuild the master boot record. I can do other stuff like that. You can do testing and everything. Convert to GPT, convert to MBR. If you know this stuff, then you know. This is a free one. I think there's a paid version that gets you some extra stuff, but I've never needed it. It's kind of like gparted is for Linux. They're sort of similar. Gparted is probably more powerful in some ways, but this is a good Windows replacement anyhow. The next one is Macri Reflect, which there are trial editions, and then there's the free home edition, personal edition type of thing. And I love this software. I think I've got it. So the one thing I don't like about this is that it will bug you to update it. And so for that reason, I'll uninstall it and then reinstall it when I need to. But basically, it's a little tough to see here, but this is backup software. So you can take your computer, the disk that's on it, or you can plug in an external disk. You can plug in a disk from another computer and either back it up to a separate disk by cloning it, or you can save it as an ISO file and save it somewhere. So what I'll do oftentimes is I may need to take a 120 gigabyte SSD and take everything that's on there and put it onto a 240 gig because I want to go to the larger size SSD. So what I'll do is I'll have the 120 gig plugged in, I'll have the 240 gig plugged in, and I'll just clone the 120 to the 240. And then when I pop the 240 into the machine I'm going to use it in, I can expand the size of it after the fact. But this works great for backups, and it does it quickly because it compresses the data. And so let's say you've got a 60 gigabyte operating system with your files and stuff. It might take 20 gigabytes of space. And so the other thing that I'll do is I will back up disks to ISO files, save them as a huge ISO file, save them on my server, and then I can run that backup, say, monthly. So now if I have like a Windows update that crashes, or if I break something myself, I can just take that ISO file and reapply it to the disk. There's also WinPE software in there that'll help you create a startup disk. So if your computer crashes but you have a backup, you pop in that startup disk, a USB key really, boot the computer from that, fetch the ISO file and install it over the disk, and then take it out and reboot, and you're back to exactly where you were before you did that update, before you broke that thing. So it's good backup software. Again, with this one, there's a free version and there are better versions, but it does an awful lot. So things like differential images. Differential images are great. It will look at one backup, and if you tell it to create another backup of the same file system, it will look at it and say, okay, what has changed since then, from then to now? And then when it makes a backup, all it does is add those additional things to it. It doesn't create a whole new backup and take twice as much space. So it's kind of smart about it. Yeah, there's other stuff that it does. Direct disk cloning is really powerful. I use that constantly. And creating ISO images. Creating images of a live or a running Windows OS is something that I do constantly. So it's good, powerful, free backup software. OBS, that's the recording software, the screen recording software that I'm using here. You can use it for streaming as well. It's open source, it's free. There's a lot of stuff to it. I'm not even going to get into it, but a lot of YouTubers use it, Twitch streamers, stuff like that. I've used it way more now that we're doing distance learning, and I've got to record videos and stuff like that for my job. To that effect, OpenShot is a video editor that I've been using recently. So it's also open source. You can see you can get it for Linux, Windows, or Mac. It works well. It works much better than the built-in Windows video editor. It's simple, but it's got a lot of stuff in it as well. So let's see. Takes a second to open up. I really need to get a new computer. This one's kind of old. Maybe I should have a Patreon, and then you guys can all give me money, and I can buy a new computer and a Ferrari. Come on. There we are. So you can see it's similar to using Windows Video Editor, Windows Movie Maker, whatever. You drag clips in here, bring them down and put them on these tracks. You've got a couple of tracks to play with. You can cut them. You can do things like messing with the volume and everything. I don't have a clip in there now, but this is the preview pane. You can save it as a project, and then you can export the project as well to a couple of common formats, and you can play with things like the bitrate, stuff like that. There are transitions you can add in there. There are other effects that you can add in there as well. So there's some cheesy stuff. I think this one supports plugins, but I'm not sure. I've never really gotten into it because the videos I make are pretty simple, you know, and the video editing that I do is simple. But for being a free one, it's really nice, and it works better than Windows Video Editor. What I found with Windows was after you had 4 or 5 clips, you would start to get artifacting, glitching, errors, things like that. It wouldn't save the whole video, or it wouldn't save the audio, or you'd get the black ink thing. Just throughout the export process. And I'm using an old AMD card and just some Xeon CPUs that are 10 years old now. But it shouldn't have had that issue. I think it was just running up against memory limitations, and Windows Video Editor and Movie Maker are just too simplistic, basically. This solved that, and it works nicely. You can zoom into the timeline as well, zoom in and zoom out, so you can get pretty granular and get right down to like a half a second to make sure that you're like clipping the correct part or transitioning where you want to and that type of thing. So it works well for being a freebie. CCleaner. CCleaner comes from Crap Cleaner. The extra C is for crap. And there's the free version. Yes, there are other ones. Crap Cleaner basically cleans up junk files that are on your computer and junk registry entries that you don't need. The only thing that annoys me is when you first install it, depending on where you download it from, there might be other stuff that tries to install itself with it. So you gotta just watch when you're installing it and uncheck any extra crap. But I don't think from the CCleaner website itself that you'll get that. And then it does automatic monitoring. So like once you get up to, you know, half a gig of crap files or whatever, it'll pop up and give you warnings and stuff. But that means it's running all the time. I don't want that. I don't want programs that use more memory than you know they need to, even though I've got 48 gigs of memory. It's just a waste. And so I'll always go in there and turn that off. But it works well. It also bugs you to update constantly every time you turn it on. But you can do custom clean and select a bunch of this stuff. It'll clean all of this junk. And then you can do registry, and I just select everything, do scan for issues, and then fix. There are some other tools, like you can, I will use this often, where I'll delete startup entries, especially like if you install an Adobe program, there's always a million startup entries that go in there with it. And you'll want to go in there and delete that extra junk from startup. Don't delete anything if you don't know what it is, or if you think that you need it. And then like Google Drive Sync and AnyDesk, I want those things to start up with the computer. They're two of the only things that I want to, but oftentimes there's a lot of stuff that I don't need to, like Logitech software. If you have like an HP, there's a million HP startup things. This can delete that. Makes your startup much quicker, uses less memory in your system overall because of that, and it's nice. However, you'll want to go into options, smart cleaning, and uncheck these things. Disable smart cleaning. It's just annoying. It's going to give you things that pop up and say you need to clean your device, you need to clean your device. Don't bother with that. Run CCleaner every 2 weeks or a month and you'll be good. That's all. Update it when you get a chance, you know. For Office, I have Microsoft Office because I pretty much need it because of other people using it, and it's the de facto standard. It works well. Personally, I prefer to use Google Office whenever possible. But Google Office tends to work better if you have an internet connection, though there is an offline version, and sometimes you don't. And so in order to replace Office without using Google Office, you've got two options. There's a couple more, but two major options are WPS and LibreOffice. LibreOffice has been around for forever. I think it's built on Java. It works well, but it's not quite as familiar as, it doesn't look quite like Microsoft Office. It looks a little different and it's a little tougher to get used to. WPS looks just like Office. It's more or less a Chinese-built clone of Office, so much so that I'm amazed that they're able to get away with it, but they do. It tends to be more compatible with file formats from Microsoft as well than LibreOffice, but both of them work. LibreOffice has a nice math editor and a nice drawing add-on as well. WPS Office has some PDF things in there too. So LibreOffice is totally open source and free. WPS Office, they do try to get you to pay for the premium thing and to pay for support and stuff, but both of these would work if you need a replacement for Office. So yeah, that's about it. Those are the biggest things that I can think of. Those are the things that I use, you know, every day, daily, regularly. And although there are, you know, some other things that I'll use, those are the ones that I use regularly. So if you got any questions, you know, leave them down below and let me know. And hope that was informative for you because that was a long one. Thanks.